welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a really frustrating situation many homeowners face. Denied home insurance claims,
Yeah, it happens a lot.
especially when it involves something like hail damage to your roof.
Yeah.
It can feel like a huge setback, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. And figuring out the next steps, well, it can be pretty overwhelming. You pay those premiums expecting support when, disaster strikes.
Right, like after a big hailstorm.
Yeah,
So getting that denial letter, it can leave you feeling vulnerable and just unsure where to turn.
definitely.
That's why we're doing this deep dive into the work of Ray Gessner from A Step in Time. He's someone who actually steps in to help homeowners and even roofing contractors navigate these denials.
And his background is quite impressive, isn't it?
It really is. He's the founder and CEO of A Step in Time, been doing it since 1998. Holds a bachelor's in civil engineering from Virginia Tech,
Mm.
a master of engineering from Old Dominion. Plus, he's a licensed professional engineer, a PE in a whole bunch of states: VA, MD, DC, NCFL, GA, NYTX, MARWA.
Wow, that's extensive.
And it doesn't stop there. Master tradesman licenses in HVAC, plumbing, gas fitting in Virginia, a Class A contractor license, OSHA 30 certified.
So practical skills on top of the engineering theory.
Exactly. And his team even uses the International Code Council's guidelines for remote virtual inspections. So maintaining standards, even remotely.
It's really key there is the combination. It's not just book smarts. He has that hands-on practical understanding of how buildings are put together, the engineering principles,
Right.
and he knows the codes and regulations. That comprehensive view is just so valuable when you're trying to figure out what really caused the damage and why a claim might have been denied.
It really sets the context, especially when you think about some of the big insurance disputes we've seen. Remember that lawsuit against State Farm after Hurricane Katrina?
Vaguely, yes. What was the issue there?
Well, hundreds of homeowners sued. They alleged State Farm used like a standardized engineering report from H.A. Engineering to issue sort of blanket denials, claiming the damage was from storm surge, not wind, even when wind damage was covered.
The classic wind versus water debate.
Exactly. Now, H.A. denied any bias, said their reports were factual, but it just highlights how these disagreements happen, right?
Absolutely does.
And it underscores why you might need someone independent, like Gessner, to provide a different perspective.
That case really nails it. The first look by the insurance company. Well, it might not capture the whole picture or, accurately pinpoint all the reasons for the damage.
Right.
That's where an independent expert with a strong technical background becomes, frankly, essential for homeowners.
Precisely. So our mission today for this deep dive is to really understand the systematic, detailed approach Ray Gessner uses, how he helps homeowners and roofers challenge these denied hail damage claims.
Sounds good. Where do we start?
Okay, let's unpack his process. Step one, the
Yeah.
photo review of the alleged damage.
Right, this is the starting point. Ray uses his engineering eye, basically, to critically look at the photos. He's trying to see if the damage pattern actually lines up with a real hail event.
What does that mean exactly? Lines up.
Well, he's looking for specific things, what you might call mechanical signatures of hail impact. Actual fractures in the shingles, punctures, or significant granule displacement, the kind of stuff that shows the force of hail hitting it.
Okay, so not just like a few scuffs or marks. He's looking for real structural impact on the roofing material itself.
Exactly. And just as important, he's using his expertise to rule out other things.
Like what? What else could it be?
Oh, plenty of things. Just normal aging, wear and tear, maybe previous wind damage, UV degradation over time. Even sometimes issues from a poor insulation job in the first place. Making that distinction is absolutely key to building a solid case for hail damage.
That's a really critical filter, isn't it? And it says a lot about his credibility that he'll actually turn down cases if the photos don't show what he considers real functional hail damage.
Absolutely. It maintains its integrity. He's focusing on where there's a genuine argument to be made based on the evidence.
Okay, that makes sense. Which brings us neatly to step two, reviewing the opposing engineering report. This sounds like where he really starts to challenge the denial itself.
It is. So the insurance company denies the claim, right? And they usually provide their own engineering report to back that up.
Right.
Ray takes that report and just meticulously goes through it.
Yeah.
He's hunting for technical errors, any signs of bias, things they might have missed, omissions, or maybe even flawed methods used during their inspection.
Like a peer review almost.
Kind of, yeah. But specifically looking at it from the homeowner's perspective and applying rigorous engineering standards.
So what kind of red flags might he spot in those reports?
Yeah.
What suggests their assessment might be off?
Well, maybe signs the inspection was rushed. Did the engineer actually test the soft metals? Vents flashing. Those often show hail hits clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Were there leaks reported inside the house, maybe in the attic, that the report just glosses over or doesn't connect to the roof damage? Or a big one, did they just label damage as cosmetic, when actually it could compromise the roof's ability to shed water and protect the home long term? That's a critical distinction.
That cosmetic label sounds like a common point of contention.
It really can be. So a key thing for homeowners is to always question, how thorough was the insurer's inspection? Did they look everywhere? Was their method sound?
And if Ray finds these issues, these discrepancies, what then?
He documents everything very carefully. He points out exactly where the opposing engineer's conclusions don't match up with the physical evidence or with building codes or just accepted engineering facts.
And because he's a licensed PE.
Exactly. That carries weight. His counter-analysis, coming from another licensed professional engineer, someone who's met really strict standards for education, experience, past exams, all that. It often forces the insurance company to take another look. It signifies a high level of professional competency challenging their findings.
Yeah, I could see how that would prompt a reevaluation, maybe even a whole new inspection of the property.
Often it does. And sometimes that leads directly to overturning the denial.
Okay, that makes total sense. Let's move to step 3. The verified hail report review. This sounds like bringing in the weather data.
Precisely. It adds another layer of objective, hard evidence. To really make the case, you need to show that, yes, a hailstorm capable of causing damage did happen at that specific property.
Makes sense.
So Ray uses independent meteorological data, stuff that creates a verifiable timeline and proves the weather impact wasn't just someone's imagination.
And where does he get this data? Is it just like standard weather reports?
He uses specialized hail verification reports. There are reputable companies like CoreLogic, HailTrace, WeatherCheck. They analyze historical radar data, weather station info, sometimes even ground reports, to confirm if hail of a certain size, a damaging size, fell at that specific address on specific dates.
So it's much more specific than just knowing there was a storm in the region?
Oh, absolutely. It pinpoints it to the property level.
Yeah.
And then, crucially, he compares the date of that verified hail event to the homeowner's insurance policy period.
To make sure it's covered within the policy dates.
Exactly. It directly counters that potential insurer argument of, sorry, no qualifying storm happened while your policy was active. It connects the dots.
Yeah.
Verified storm, policy active, potential for damage.
Okay, that's a powerful piece of the puzzle. Now, step 4 sounds really interesting. Outside research is the X factor. What's so different about this part?
Yeah, this is where Ray's approach gets really creative, I think. It goes way beyond what most standard evaluations would involve.
How so?
He basically becomes a digital detective combined with some old-fashioned legwork. He digs deep into sources most people wouldn't think to check for an insurance claim.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Like, what kind of sources?
He'll scour social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. He looks through local news archives, checks neighborhood forums like Nextdoor, even community video sites like YouTube or Vimeo.
Looking for what? Mentions of the storm?
Mentions, yes, but ideally visual proof. He's hunting for eyewitness videos. If someone films the hail coming down on their phone, maybe hitting their car or patio table.
Oh, that's clever. People do that all the time.
They really do. And the gold mine is that these videos often have metadata embedded in them. Like the exact time the video was taken, and often the GPS coordinates the geolocation of where it was recorded.
Wow.
And that data can often be authenticated. So now you have visual proof of hail, potentially damaging hail happening right there at or very near the property at a specific time.
That's incredible.
And he doesn't stop there. He might actually reach out directly to neighbors in the immediate area, ask them if they remember the storm, if they saw hail, if maybe their property had any damage.
That is some serious dedication to finding evidence.
It really is. And think about it, it becomes very difficult for an insurance company to just dismiss that kind of hyper-local visual confirmation, doesn't it?
Yeah, especially when you pair it with the official weather reports from HailTrace or CoreLogic and his own expert engineering analysis of the roof damage.
Exactly. It builds this really robust, multi-layered case that's often just, well, irrefutable. It significantly strengthens the homeowner's position.
So pulling this all together, the photo analysis, the report critique, the weather data, this outside research, what's the overall impact? What results do people actually see from his work?
Well, the bottom line is it often works. Homeowners who were initially denied get the coverage they deserve.
Which means they can actually fix their roof.
Right, and it means the roofing contractors who did legitimate repair work or are planning to actually get paid. It also gives public adjusters and lawyers really solid technical backing when they're fighting these cases.
We heard about one specific example, didn't we? A big settlement, like $500,000, involving tree impact. How did his approach play out there?
Yeah, that was an interesting one. It wasn't hail, but tree impact. Ray identified what the building code calls substantial damage. In that case, it was about how the impact reduced the house's ability to resist side-to-side forces. It's called shear capacity. Think of it like the home's strength against twisting or sliding forces. Damage can weaken that.
Makes sense.
And he found that the insurance company's engineer hadn't even done the calculations needed to assess that loss of shear capacity. Big oversight.
Wow.
Plus, he identified another issue: the foundation wasn't up to code to begin with. So the combination of proving substantial structural damage based on code, showing the other engineer missed it, and finding the foundation issue, that's what led the insurer to reopen the claim and agree to that large settlement.
That really highlights the value of understanding the building codes and doing the actual engineering calculations.
Absolutely. It's not just about looking at the surface damage.
And speaking of foundations, he does evaluations for those too, separate from storm damage, right?
Okay.
But with a focus on being unbiased.
That's right. And this is key. His company, A Step in Time, they don't do foundation repairs.
So there's no conflict of interest.
Exactly. His assessments are purely objective. And frankly, he finds that a huge percentage of foundation repair estimates, maybe 80%, even 90% sometimes, are often way overestimated or just plain unnecessary.
Really? That high?
It's surprisingly common. So he has a systematic way he checks foundations, looks at the overall levelness, checks the exterior walls and the structural frame, looks for telltale signs inside the house like cracks or sticking doors, and even analyzes how the roof load might be affecting things.
So he can potentially save homeowners a lot of money and hassle by preventing unnecessary expensive repairs.
That's the goal. Provide an accurate, unbiased assessment of what, if anything, actually needs to be done.
This all sounds like incredibly valuable help for people stuck dealing with denied claims or worrying about major repairs. So for our listeners, homeowners, roofing companies, if they're in this kind of situation, how can they get in touch with Ray Gessner?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're facing a denied hail damage claim or maybe need one of those foundation assessments, you can definitely reach out to Ray Gessner at A Step in Time.
What's the best way?
The most direct ways are probably email, which is raygesner@yahoo.com. That's RAYGESSNER @yahoo.com. Or you can call him at +848-INSPECT.
848-INSPECT?
Yeah.
What's that number?
That translates to +848-467-7328.
Got it. 848-467-7328. And presumably they have a website.
Yes, we didn't get the exact URL from our sources, but if you search online for A Step in Time Structural Engineering, you should find it easily enough. Probably has more info there too.
Okay. And it's worth reminding people about his licenses, again, covering a lot of ground.
Definitely. Virginia, Maryland, D.C., North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, New York, Texas, Massachusetts, Oregon, Washington. And he holds an NCES record.
What's that?
It's basically a verified central file of an engineer's credentials. It makes it much easier and faster for him to get licensed in other states if a project requires it.
So he has broad reach and the ability to potentially help even more people.
That's the idea. It shows his commitment to professional standards across multiple states.
Okay. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, it really seems clear that when you're up against a denied insurance claim, especially for complex stuff like hail damage, well, having a systematic, super detailed, expert-driven approach is just vital.
Couldn't agree more.
Ray Gessner's method, combining that deep engineering knowledge with really thorough, almost investigative techniques. It seems like it really does bridge that gap between homeowners or contractors and the insurance companies.
Yeah, that engineering background paired with his way of gathering and analyzing all the evidence, the photos, the reports, the weather data, even social media stuff, it provides that critical independent viewpoint.
Right.
And often that's the key, the key to getting a claim looked at fairly and maybe getting that denial overturned.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? When you're facing a big potential cost from a denied claim and you're trying to understand all the technical jargon, getting that expert, unbiased analysis might just be the most empowering thing you can do. It really shows the value of digging deep, thorough investigation, and what a qualified professional engineer brings to the fight.
Well said. It highlights the importance of not just accepting the first answer, especially when the stakes are high.